In the year 2789, when the universe was home to myriad civilizations, each race prided itself on the aesthetic grandeur of their starships. The sleek and elegant vessels of the Arcturans glided like shimmering fish through the stars, their hulls a mesmerizing blend of iridescent blues and greens that seemed to ripple with the very fabric of space-time. The graceful petal-like ships of the Zelvaxians danced through the void, their beauty unmatched, each vessel resembling a colossal, translucent flower in full bloom, its petals unfurling to reveal intricate patterns of light and color. The Draven, masters of crystalline technology, piloted ships that looked like floating diamonds, refracting starlight into dazzling prismatic displays. The insectoid Zartaxians commanded living ships, great spacefaring creatures that pulsed with bioluminescence and changed colors to communicate complex ideas and emotions. Even the silicon-based Lithonians, often considered stoic and practical, designed their ships with sweeping curves and delicate filigree that belied their rocky nature. The universe was a gallery of artistry in motion, where each race competed not only in power but in elegance. Interstellar spaceports became impromptu exhibitions, with ships from 100 worlds vying for attention and admiration. It wasn't uncommon for races to delay important diplomatic meetings or trade negotiations, simply to marvel at a particularly stunning new vessel design. But then, there were the humans. Humanity's starships were infamous across the galaxy, not for their strength or speed, but for their sheer ugliness. They were angular, bulky, and seemingly cobbled together with no regard for aesthetics. The outer hulls were patched with mismatched metals, their paint chipped and scorched from countless battles and atmospheric entries. Where other ships had sleek curves and luminescent surfaces, human vessels had exposed pipes, asymmetrical surfaces, and a utilitarian design that seemed to prioritize function over form to a degree that was almost offensive to the artistic sensibilities of other species. Captain Elena Rodriguez of the Earthship Tenacity knew this reputation all too well. As she stood on the bridge of her vessel, approaching the Grand Galactic Council spaceport orbiting Centauri Prime, she could practically feel the stares of disdain from the crews of the other ships. The Tenacity was a patchwork of metals and alloys, its hull a testament to countless repairs and upgrades. Pipes and conduits snaked across its surface, some steaming, others pulsing with energy. Antennae and sensor arrays jutted out at odd angles, giving the ship the appearance of a metal porcupine.
"Incoming transmission from Centauri Control,"
announced Lieutenant Zhang, her communications officer.
"They're requesting we move to a parking orbit further from the main thoroughfare."
Rodriguez sighed. It wasn't the first time they'd received such a request.
"Acknowledge the transmission, Lieutenant. Tell them we'll comply, but remind them that we have official business with the Galactic Council and require docking access within the next solar day."
As they maneuvered to their designated orbit, Rodriguez couldn't help but notice the stark contrast between the Tenacity and the ships around them. A Zelvaxian cruiser glided past, its petal-like section slowly rotating, creating a hypnotic display of light and shadow. Several crew members on the Tenacity's bridge audibly gasped at its beauty.
"It's not fair,"
muttered Ensign Reyes, the young navigator.
"Why can't our ships look like that?"
Rodriguez turned to the ensign with a wry smile.
"Because, Ensign, while they were perfecting their aesthetics, we were perfecting our survival. There's beauty in that too, even if it's not obvious at first glance."
The other races scoffed at the sight of these ungainly human behemoths. The Zelvaxians in particular were known to remark that looking at a human ship made their eyes ache. Even the diplomatically neutral Arcturans winced at the sight of a lumbering human vessel. Ambassador Xyloax of the Zelvaxian Confederacy was one such critic. As he prepared for the upcoming Galactic Council session, he found his attention drawn to the human ship that had just entered orbit. Its very presence seemed to disrupt the harmonious view from his quarters on the space station.
"Simply dreadful,"
he murmured, his delicate petal-like appendages quivering in distaste.
"How can a species capable of faster-than-light travel produce something so inelegant?"
His aide, a younger Zelvaxian named Thelaax, approached with a datapad.
"The humans claim their designs are practical, Ambassador. They say beauty is secondary to function.
Xyloax made a sound that in human terms might be described as a snort.
Function without form is barbarism, Thelax. The very fact that they prioritize such brutish practicality over harmony and aesthetics speaks volumes about their species. Mark my words, they'll never truly integrate into galactic society with such crude sensibilities.
Little did Xyloax know that his words would soon be put to the test, and that the very qualities he derided would shake the foundations of the galactic order. Meanwhile, deep in the heart of Arcturan space, another conversation was taking place. High Admiral Zenara of the Arcturan Confederation stood before a holographic display of the known galaxy, her luminescent skin glowing with a mix of blue and green that indicated deep thought and concern.
The humans continue to expand their territory.
She said, addressing the assembled Arcturan High Command.
Their colonies are pushing into regions we've long considered our sphere of influence.
A junior officer spoke up, his skin pulsing with streaks of yellow uncertainty.
But surely they're not a real threat, Admiral. Their technology is crude. Their ships
Are ugly?
Zinra finished, a ripple of amusement coloring her bioluminescence.
Yes, by our standards, they are. But don't let that fool you. The humans have a knack for surviving where others would perish, for turning disadvantages into strengths. We've underestimated them before, to our detriment.
She waved a hand, and the holographic display zoomed in on a sector of space near the galactic core.
Intelligence reports suggest they're developing new propulsion technology, something that could give them a significant advantage in both civil and military applications. We cannot allow them to gain such an upper hand.
The members of the High Command exchanged glances, their skin color shifting in a complex dance of emotions and unspoken communication. Finally, one of the elder members spoke, his voice carrying the weight of centuries.
What do you propose, Admiral?
Zinra's skin darkened to a deep blue of resolve.
I believe it's time we remind the humans of their place in the galactic order. A show of force, a clear demonstration of Arcturan superiority. We'll assemble our finest fleet, our most beautiful and deadly ships, and we'll put an end to their expansionist ambitions once and for all.
The proposal was met with a chorus of agreement, the assembled leaders glowing with various shades of approval and anticipation. None of them could have predicted how this decision would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. As the Arcturans plotted, humanity continued its relentless push into the stars, unaware of the gathering storm. On 1,000 worlds, human colonists toiled to make inhospitable planets livable, their tenacity as evident in their planetary engineering as it was in their starship design. One such world was Novus Terra, a harsh planet on the fringes of human space. Dr. Amelia Chen, lead scientist of the Terraforming project, stood on a cliff overlooking a valley that, until recently, had been a barren wasteland. Now the first signs of vegetation were beginning to appear, a testament to years of hard work and innovative geoengineering.
Report from the atmospheric processors, Doctor.
Called out her assistant, a young man named Malik.
Oxygen levels are up another 1.5% this month. We're ahead of schedule.
Amelia allowed herself a small smile.
Good. How are the bacterial seedings in Sector 7 progressing?
Slower than we hoped, but they're taking hold. The genetic modifications are allowing them to adapt to the high mineral content in the soil.
As they discussed the intricacies of planetary transformation, a sonic boom drew their attention to the sky. A human transport ship was descending through the atmosphere, its hull glowing red-hot from the friction. Unlike the sleek ships of other races, this vessel was bulky and asymmetrical, with large heat shields and multiple redundant landing gear. Malik winced at the sight.
You'd think with all our advances in technology, we could make something a bit more aesthetically pleasing.
Amelia chuckled.
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, Malik. That ship might not win any design awards, but it can land on practically any surface, in almost any weather conditions. When you're trying to colonize a hostile planet, that's far more valuable than looking pretty.
Her words echoed a sentiment shared by many humans across the galaxy. Their ships, like their colonies, were built to endure, to adapt, and to thrive in conditions that other races found uninhabitable. It was a philosophy born of necessity, shaped by humanity's long and often brutal history of space exploration. The early days of human interstellar travel had been marked by tragedy and near misses. The sleek, aesthetically pleasing ships of the first generation of explorers had proven woefully inadequate for the harsh realities of deep space. Cosmic radiation, micrometeoroid impacts, and the stress of faster-than-light travel had taken their toll, leading to catastrophic failures and lost expeditions. It was only when humanity embraced a more pragmatic, redundancy-focused approach to ship design that they began to make real progress in colonizing the stars. Every failure, every near disaster, became a lesson, a new feature to be incorporated into the next generation of ships. The result was a fleet that looked like it had been built by a committee of pessimists, each one preparing for a different worst-case scenario. But it was a fleet that survived, that pushed the boundaries of known space year after year, decade after decade. This history was not lost on Captain Rodriguez as she finally docked the Tenacity at the Galactic Council spaceport. As she led her team through the pristine, aesthetically pleasing corridors of the station, she couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in her ugly duckling of a ship.
Captain Rodriguez.
A melodious voice called out. She turned to see Ambassador Xylohax of the Zelvaxians approaching, his petal-like appendages rippling in what she had learned to recognize as a gesture of polite greeting.
I trust your journey was uneventful.
Elena smiled, recognizing the subtle barb in his words.
Quite uneventful, Ambassador, thank you. Our ship may not be much to look at, but she gets us where we need to go, safely and efficiently.
Xyloax's appendages twitched in what might have been amusement or disdain.
Indeed. Well, I look forward to hearing humanity's proposal at the council session. I understand you're seeking approval for further expansion into the Orion Arm.
That's correct, Ambassador. We believe we have much to offer in terms of colonization and resource development in that region.
The Zelvaxian made a sound that might have been a chuckle.
Ambitious as always, Captain. But tell me, do you really think the Council will approve such a request? There are concerns about the impact of human expansion on the aesthetic harmony of settled space.
Rodriguez felt her jaw tighten, but kept her diplomatic smile in place.
With all due respect, Ambassador, I believe the Council will see the value in our proposal beyond mere aesthetics. If you'll excuse me, I need to prepare for the session.
As she walked away, Rodriguez couldn't shake a feeling of unease. The disdain for humanity's practical approach to space travel ran deep in many of the older races. How long before that disdain turned to something more dangerous? Little did she know that at that very moment, the Arcturan fleet was assembling, preparing to turn that disdain into open hostility. High Admiral Zinra stood on the bridge of the Arcturan flagship, the Celestial Harmony. Around her, a fleet of over 1,000 ships stretched out into the void, each one a masterpiece of engineering and design. The ships ranged from sleek, arrow-like frigates to massive dreadnoughts that resembled floating cities, their hulls adorned with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change as one watched.
All ships report ready, Admiral.
Her second-in-command reported, his skin glowing with anticipation. Zinra nodded, her own bioluminescence, a steady, determined blue.
Very well. Set course for the human colony world of Novus Terra. It's time we showed these upstart apes the true might of the Arcturan Confederation.
As the fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, Zinra allowed herself a moment of reflection. She had studied the humans, their history, their tenacity. Part of her admired their resilience, their ability to thrive in adversity, but she also saw them as a potential threat to the delicate balance of power in the galaxy. Their expansion had to be checked, their ambitions curbed for the greater good of all species. The journey to Novus Terra took several days, even at FTL speeds. In that time, the Arcturan fleet honed their tactics, running simulations based on known human ship capabilities. Every scenario ended in a swift, decisive victory for the Arcturans. How could it not, when their ships were not only more aesthetically pleasing, but also incorporated the most advanced technology from a dozen worlds? Meanwhile, on Novus Terra, The first warnings of the approaching fleet came as a series of anomalous readings picked up by the long-range sensors. Dr. Chen, still focused on her terraforming efforts, was pulled into an emergency meeting with the colonial governor and the small detachment of Earth Defense Force personnel stationed on the planet.
It has to be a malfunction,
The governor insisted, his face pale as he looked at the sensor data.
There's no way a fleet that size would be approaching without prior notification. The Galactic Council would have informed us.
Captain Sarah Donovan of the EDF shook her head grimly.
I'm afraid the readings are accurate, sir. We've confirmed it with our orbital platforms. A large fleet, definitely Arcturan in origin, will reach our system within 48 hours. And they're not responding to our hails.
The implications hung heavy in the air. Novus Terra was a fledgling colony with minimal defenses and only a handful of ships capable of space combat. They were days away from the nearest significant human military presence.
We need to evacuate,
The governor said, his voice shaking slightly.
Get as many people off-world as we can before they arrive.
Dr. Chen spoke up, her voice steady despite the fear she felt.
With all due respect, Governor, we can't abandon Novus Terra. We've worked too hard, come too far. This planet is on the verge of becoming self-sustaining. If we leave now, all that work will be for nothing.
Captain Donovan nodded in agreement.
Besides, we don't have enough ships to evacuate even a fraction of the population. Our best bet is to stand our ground, try to hold out until help arrives.
The governor looked from one woman to the other, seeing the determination in their eyes. Finally, he squared his shoulders.
All right, we fight, but God help us, I hope we're not making a terrible mistake.
As the colony mobilized for defense, converting terraforming equipment into makeshift weapons and turning atmospheric processors into planetary shields, an urgent message was dispatched to Earth and all nearby human outposts. The message reached Captain Rodriguez just as she was preparing to present humanity's expansion proposal to the Galactic Council. The news hit her like a physical blow. Novus Terra was one of humanity's most promising colonies, and now it faced annihilation at the hands of a supposed ally. With a heavy heart, she approached the council chamber, knowing that her mission had just changed dramatically. As she entered, she saw the assembled representatives of 100 species, each more aesthetically striking than the last. At any other time, she might have felt self-conscious in her plain, functional uniform. But now, with the fate of a human world hanging in the balance, such concerns seemed trivial.
Esteemed members of the council,
She began, her voice ringing out clear and strong.
I come before you not with a proposal for expansion, but with grave news. An Arcturan fleet is en route to the human colony of Novus Terra, their intentions apparently hostile. I respectfully request the Council's immediate intervention to prevent what could become a catastrophic conflict.
The chamber erupted in a cacophony of voices and sounds. The Arcturan representative, his skin flashing with patterns of denial and indignation, rose to object.
These are baseless accusations. The Arcturan Confederation is a peaceful...
We have proof,
Rodriguez interrupted, projecting sensor data onto the central holographic display.
This fleet left Arcturan space 3 days ago. They will reach Novus Terra within hours. Millions of lives are at stake.
The council chamber fell into a stunned silence as the representatives digested this information. The Arcturan delegate's skin pulsed with a mix of colors that even other Arcturans found hard to interpret. Ambassador Xyloax of the Zelvaxians was the first to break the silence.
If these allegations are true, it represents a grave breach of galactic law. The Arcturan Confederation must explain its actions immediately.
The Arcturan representative, visibly flustered, attempted to regain composure.
This is clearly a misunderstanding. Perhaps it's a training exercise that was not properly communicated. I assure the Council, the Arcturan Confederation has no hostile intentions towards humanity or any other race.
Rodriguez felt her patience wearing thin.
With all due respect, Ambassador, a fleet of that size approaching a lightly defended colony world goes beyond a simple misunderstanding. We request immediate Council action to halt this aggression.
As the debate raged on, with various species taking sides and arguing over proper procedures, Rodriguez realized with growing dread that help would not come in time. The bureaucratic machinery of the Galactic Council moved too slowly to respond to such an immediate threat. Taking a deep breath, she made a decision that would alter the course of human history.
Esteemed members of the Council, while I appreciate your deliberations, I'm afraid humanity cannot wait for a consensus. We will take whatever actions necessary to defend our colony and our people. Let it be noted that we sought peaceful resolution first.
With that, she turned and strode out of the chamber, leaving behind a chorus of shocked exclamations and renewed arguments. As soon as she was in the corridor, she activated her comm unit.
Tenacity, this is the captain. Prepare for immediate departure. We're going to Novus Terra.
Back on the bridge of the Tenacity, Rodriguez's crew sprang into action. Lieutenant Zhang's fingers flew over the communications console.
Captain, I'm sending out a general distress call to all human ships in the sector. But the nearest significant force is at least 2 days out at maximum speed.
We'll have to make do with what we have,
Rodriguez replied grimly.
Ensign Reyes, plot the fastest course to Novus Terra. Push the engines to their limits.
As the Tenacity disengaged from the spaceport, alarms blared across the station.
Captain, we're being hailed by Centauri Control,
Zhang reported.
They're demanding we return to our dock immediately.
Ignore them,
Rodriguez ordered.
We don't have time for bureaucratic nonsense. Reyes, are we ready for the jump to FTL?
Course plotted and engines primed, Captain.
The young navigator responded, his voice tense but steady.
Then punch it.
The Tenacity's engines flared to life, and the ungainly ship leapt into faster-than-light travel, leaving behind a wake of confused and angry Galactic Council members. As they hurtled through subspace, Rodriguez gathered her senior staff for a briefing.
I won't sugarcoat this,
She began, looking each of them in the eye.
We're likely heading into a fight we can't win. The Arcturan fleet outnumbers and outguns us by an order of magnitude. But Novus Terra needs us, and we're the only help they're going to get.
Her XO, Commander Viktor Petrov, a veteran of numerous space engagements, spoke up.
Captain, with all due respect, this is suicide. What do you hope to accomplish?
Rodriguez's expression was grim but determined.
At the very least, we buy time. Time for the colonists to prepare, time for reinforcements to arrive. And who knows, maybe these ugly ships of ours have a few surprises left.
As the Tenacity raced towards what seemed like certain doom, events on Novus Terra were unfolding at a frantic pace. Dr. Chen had switched from terraforming to fortification, using her expertise in planetary engineering to bolster the colony's defenses.
If we reroute power from the atmospheric processors,
She explained to Captain Donovan, pointing to a holographic map of the colony.
We can create a localized ionospheric disturbance. It won't stop their ships, but it might interfere with their targeting systems and communications.
Donovan nodded, impressed despite the dire circumstances.
Do it. Every advantage helps. We've also converted some of the mining equipment into makeshift ground-to-space weapons. They won't do much against capital ships, but they might take out a few fighters.
As they worked, a young colonist approached them, fear evident in his eyes.
Dr. Chen, Captain Donovan, is it true? Are we going to be attacked?
Chen and Donovan exchanged a look before Chen knelt down to the child's level.
We are in danger,
She said softly.
but we're doing everything we can to protect our home. Your job is to stay with your family and follow the safety procedures we've practiced. Can you do that for me?
The child nodded solemnly, and Chen felt a renewed surge of determination. This was what they were fighting for. Not just a planet, but a future for people like this young boy. As the hours ticked by, tension mounted across the colony. Civilians were moved to underground shelters, while every able-bodied adult with combat experience was enlisted to help with the defense. Antiquated weapons were pulled from storage, and improvised explosives were hastily manufactured. In orbit, the handful of human ships, mostly freighters and science vessels with a few lightly armed patrol craft, formed a ragtag defensive line. Their crews knew they stood little chance against a full Arcturan battle fleet, but they were determined to sell their lives dearly if it came to that. Finally, long-range sensors detected the approaching Arcturan fleet dropping out of FTL, at the edge of the system. The sight was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. Over 1,000 ships, each one a masterpiece of form and function, their hulls gleaming in the light of Novus Terra's sun. On the bridge of the celestial harmony, High Admiral Zinra allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The fleet had arrived precisely on schedule, with all ships in perfect formation. It was a display of Arcturan superiority that she hoped would be enough to cow the humans into immediate submission.
Open a channel to the colony,
she ordered, her skin pulsing with confident blues and greens. The face that appeared on the view screen was not what she expected. Instead of a frightened governor or a belligerent military officer, she saw a calm, determined woman in a scientist's uniform.
This is Dr. Amelia Chen, acting representative of the Novus Terra colony,
the human said, her voice steady.
Arcturan fleet, you have entered human territory without authorization. State your intentions immediately.
Zinra's skin rippled with amusement. Did these humans really think they were in any position to make demands?
Dr. Chen, I am High Admiral Zinra of the Arcturan Confederation. We have come to put an end to humanity's reckless expansion. Surrender your colony immediately, and we will ensure the safe relocation of your people.
Chen's expression didn't waver.
I'm afraid that's not possible, Admiral. Novus Terra is our home. We've poured years of work and countless resources into making this planet livable. We will not abandon it.
Then you leave us no choice,
Zinra replied, her skin darkening to deep blues and purples of resolve.
You have 1 hour to reconsider before we begin our attack. I suggest you use that time wisely.
As the communication ended, Zinra turned to her second-in-command.
Prepare all ships for battle. I want this over quickly and cleanly. Disable their defenses and key infrastructure, but minimize civilian casualties. We're here to subdue them, not annihilate them.
Back on Novus Terra, Chen rejoined Donovan in the hastily assembled command center.
1 hour,
she said grimly.
Any word from Earth?
Donovan shook her head.
Nothing yet. But we did pick up a transmission from Captain Rodriguez. The Tenacity is on its way, for whatever good one ship will do.
Chen managed a small smile.
1 ship is better than no ships, and if I know Elena, she'll have a few tricks up her sleeve.
As the minutes ticked by, the people of Novus Terra prepared for the fight of their lives. In orbit and on the ground, humans checked weapons, said quiet prayers, and steeled themselves for what was to come. And then, precisely 1 hour after the ultimatum was delivered, the sky above Novus Terra lit up with the fire of 1,000 Arcturan weapons. The battle for humanity's future had begun. The initial barrage from the Arcturan fleet was overwhelming. Energy beams and plasma bolts rained down on Novus Terra's makeshift defenses, overwhelming shields and vaporizing the few orbital platforms the colonists had managed to jury-rig. But as the attacks continued, something unexpected happened. The ionospheric disturbance created by Dr. Chen's repurposed atmospheric processors began to take effect. Arcturan targeting systems, calibrated for pinpoint accuracy, suddenly found their beams scattered and diffused by the charged particles in the upper atmosphere. On the bridge of the celestial harmony, High Admiral Zinra frowned as reports came in of decreased weapon effectiveness.
Impossible,
she muttered, her skin pulsing with irritation.
Our systems are state-of-the-art. How could these primitives be interfering with them?
Meanwhile, on the surface, Captain Donovan coordinated the ground defenses. The converted mining equipment, while crude, proved surprisingly effective against the Arcturan fighters that attempted low-altitude strafing runs. Several of the sleek, beautiful craft were blown out of the sky by repurposed mining lasers and hastily assembled railguns.
Keep it up,
Donovan shouted over the comm, her voice filled with fierce pride.
Every ship we take down is one less they can use against us.
In the command center, Dr. Chen monitored the battle through a series of holographic displays. Despite the unexpected success of their jury-rigged defenses, she knew they were still grossly outmatched.
We need more time,
she murmured, her mind racing.
If we could just hold out a little longer.
As if in answer to her unspoken prayer, a new alert sounded. Chen's eyes widened as she interpreted the sensor readings.
It's the Tenacity,
she exclaimed,
They've arrived.
The human ship dropped out of FTL at the edge of the system, its ugly utilitarian form a stark contrast to the gleaming Arcturan vessels. Captain Rodriguez took in the scene before her with a mixture of awe and dread. The Arcturan fleet was even larger than she had feared, and the battle around Novus Terra was already well underway.
Status report.
She barked, her eyes never leaving the tactical display. Lieutenant Zhang's voice was tense but professional.
Novus Terra's defenses are holding better than expected, Captain, but they're still taking a beating. The Arcturans seem to be focusing on disabling key infrastructure rather than outright destruction.
Rodriguez nodded grimly.
Small mercies. Weapons status?
All systems operational, Captain,
replied the tactical officer.
But permission to speak freely?
Granted.
Ma'am, we're hopelessly outgunned. What exactly is our plan here?
Rodriguez allowed herself a small, determined smile.
Our plan, Lieutenant, is to be the biggest, ugliest distraction these Arcturans have ever seen. Comms, open a channel to the Arcturan flagship.
On the bridge of the Celestial Harmony, High Admiral Zinra was growing increasingly frustrated. The human defenses were proving far more resilient than anticipated, and the ionospheric interference was severely hampering their precision strikes.
Admiral,
her communications officer called out, skin flickering with surprise.
We're receiving a transmission from a human ship that just entered the system.
Zinra's bioluminescence pulsed with disbelief.
One ship? Put them through.
The image of Captain Rodriguez appeared on the main view screen, her expression one of calm defiance.
This is Captain Elena Rodriguez of the Earth ship Tenacity. Arcturan fleet, you are engaged in an illegal and unprovoked attack on a human colony. Stand down immediately or face the consequences.
For a moment, Zinra was too stunned to respond. Then, despite herself, she let out a sound that might have been a laugh.
Captain Rodriguez, your bravery is admirable, if misplaced. You have one ship, we have 1,000. What possible consequences could you inflict?
Rodriguez's expression didn't waver.
That's for us to know and you to find out, Admiral. I'll ask one more time. Withdraw your fleet, or we will be forced to defend ourselves.
Zinra's skin darkened with anger and determination.
Very well, Captain. If you insist on this foolish stand, then we will oblige you. All ships target the human vessel. Let's end this quickly.
As the communication cut off, Rodriguez turned to her crew.
All right, people. This is it. Evasive maneuvers, random pattern. Weapons, target the nearest Arcturan ship and fire at will. Engineering, I want everything you can give me on engines and shields. It's time to show these aesthetes what an ugly ship can do.
The Tenacity lurched into motion, its ungainly form belying a surprising agility. As Arcturan weapons fire began to fill space around it, the human ship ducked and weaved, its irregular shape and unexpected movements making it a maddeningly difficult target. But it wasn't just playing defense. The Tenacity's weapons blazed to life, a hodgepodge of lasers, railguns, and missile launchers that seemed to have been added to the ship's hull wherever there was space. The barrage wasn't pretty, but it was effective, punching through the shields of an Arcturan frigate and sending it spinning out of formation. On the Celestial Harmony, Zinra watched in growing disbelief as the lone human ship danced through her fleet, dealing damage and evading retaliation with equal skill.
How is this possible?
She demanded, her skin flashing with angry reds and yellows.
It's one ship. An ugly, primitive vessel. How is it outmaneuvering us?
Her tactical officer's skin pulsed with confusion and frustration.
Admiral, the human ship's design, it's unlike anything we've encountered. Our targeting systems are calibrated for sleek, symmetrical vessels. This ship's irregular shape and unpredictable movements are throwing off our calculations. And their weapons, they're crude but effective. Our shields are optimized for energy weapons, but they're using a mix of energy and projectile weapons that's surprisingly difficult to defend against.
As the battle raged on, the Tenacity continued its improbable dance through the Arcturan fleet. Its hull was scorched and battered, but the ship's multiple redundant systems and patchwork armor allowed it to absorb punishment that would have crippled a more conventionally designed vessel. Back on Novus Terra, The colonists watched in awe as the lone human ship fought against impossible odds. Daniel, monitoring the battle from the command center, felt a surge of hope.
They're doing it.
She breathed.
They're actually buying us time.
Captain Donovan nodded, a fierce grin on her face.
And more than that. Look, the Arcturans are so focused on taking down the Tenacity. They've slowed their attack on our ground defenses. We might just have a chance here.
But even as hope began to grow, the odds remained overwhelmingly against them. The Tenacity, for all its surprising effectiveness, was still one ship against 1,000. Its hull was beginning to buckle under the constant barrage, and its movements were becoming slower, less agile. On the bridge, now filled with smoke and the sparks of damaged systems, Captain Rodriguez gritted her teeth as another impact rocked the ship.
Status report.
Shields at 12%, Captain.
Zhang called out, his voice strained.
Multiple hull breaches on decks 3 through 7. Weapons systems operating at 60% capacity. We can't take much more of this.
Rodriguez nodded grimly.
We've done what we can. Prepare to...
She was cut off by a sudden shout from the sensor station.
Captain, multiple FTL signatures detected. It's the Earth Defense Fleet.
As if materializing out of thin air, dozens of human ships dropped out of FTL around Novus Terra. Like the Tenacity, they were ugly, asymmetrical vessels that looked more like flying scrapyards than warships. But they moved with purpose, immediately engaging the surprised Arcturan fleet. Admiral Zinra stared at her tactical display in disbelief as more and more human ships appeared. Her carefully planned operation was rapidly descending into chaos.
How?
She demanded.
How did they respond so quickly?
The answer, though she couldn't know it, lay in the ugly utilitarian design of human ships. Unlike the beautiful but specialized vessels of other races, human ships were designed with adaptability in mind. Their modular construction allowed for rapid reconfigurations, and their robust communication arrays, those unsightly antennas and dishes jutting out at odd angles, enabled faster-than-light communication across vast distances. The distress call sent by the Tenacity had reached Earth's fleets far quicker than the Arcturans had thought possible. And those fleets, always on alert due to humanity's precarious position in the galaxy, had responded with unprecedented speed. As the battle raged on, the tide began to turn. The human ships, working in concert, employed tactics that seemed chaotic and unpredictable to the Arcturans. They used their ships' irregular shapes to create blind spots in Arcturan targeting systems, and their mix of energy and projectile weapons continued to confound enemy defenses. On the bridge of the Celestial Harmony, Admiral Zinro watched with growing horror as her beautiful fleet was slowly but surely dismantled by these ugly, brutish vessels.
This is impossible.
He muttered, her skin pulsing with disbelief and fear. Her second-in-command approached, his own bioluminescence dim with concern.
Admiral, we've lost a third of our fleet. The humans are pressing their advantage, and our formations are breaking down. We need to consider withdrawal.
Zinra's first instinct was to refuse, to press on, and crush these upstart humans. But as she looked at the tactical display, she realized the bitter truth. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price.
Send the signal.
She said, her voice hollow.
All ships, emergency withdrawal. Regroup at Rally Point Epsilon.
As the Arcturan fleet began its retreat, cheers erupted across the human ships and on the surface of Novus Terra. Captain Rodriguez, battered but unbowed, allowed herself a moment of relief before turning to her crew.
Well done, everyone, but let's not celebrate too soon. Lieutenant Zhang, open a channel to the Earth Defense Fleet flagship.
The face that appeared on the view screen was familiar. Admiral Yuki Tanaka, one of the most respected leaders in the Earth Defense Force.
Captain Rodriguez,
Tanaka said, a hint of a smile on her weathered face.
Seems you started the party without us.
Rodriguez grinned tiredly.
Glad you could make it, Admiral. Novus Terra is secure, but I have a feeling this isn't over.
Tanaka nodded gravely.
You're right about that. This was just the opening move. The galaxy's about to change, and humanity needs to be ready.
In the days that followed, the consequences of the Battle of Novus Terra reverberated across the galaxy. The Galactic Council was thrown into turmoil, with many races re-evaluating their stance on humanity. The Arcturan Confederation faced severe sanctions for their unprovoked aggression, and their influence in galactic politics waned significantly. But perhaps the most profound change was in how the other races viewed humanity and their ships. What had once been seen as ugly and primitive was now recognized as a testament to human ingenuity and adaptability. The very features that had made human vessels objects of ridicule, their irregular shapes, exposed systems, and modular designs, were now being studied and in some cases emulated by other races. 1 month after the battle, Captain Rodriguez found herself back in the Galactic Council chamber, this time as an honored guest. As she took the podium, she looked out at the assembled representatives of 100 worlds, seeing a mix of respect, fear, and curiosity in their alien faces.
Members of the Galactic Council,
She began, her voice strong and clear.
the recent conflict has shown us all that appearances can be deceiving. Humanity's ships may not be beautiful by the standards of many races, but they are a reflection of our history, our struggles, and our determination to survive against all odds.
She paused, looking around the chamber before continuing.
We didn't set out to create ugly ships. We simply built what we needed to endure the harshest environments, to adapt to any situation, to survive. And in doing so, we've learned an important lesson, one that I hope all of us can take to heart. True beauty, true strength, lies not in outward appearance, but in the ability to endure, to adapt, and to thrive in the face of adversity.
As she spoke, holographic images appeared above the council chamber, showing human ships in all their ungainly glory. But now, seen through new eyes, their beauty became apparent. The beauty of function, of survival, of a species reaching for the stars with everything they had.
We stand ready to share our knowledge, to learn from others, and to work together for a more secure and prosperous galaxy.
Rodriguez concluded.
Our ugly ships are a testament to human resilience, and we offer that resilience now in service of galactic peace.
As applause filled the chamber, Dr. Chen, watching the broadcast from the newly reinforced colony on Novus Terra, felt a surge of pride. The colonists around her cheered, their earlier fears replaced by a new sense of belonging in the galactic community. In orbit above, the Tenacity floated alongside ships from a dozen worlds. Its hull was still scorched and battered, its shape as ungainly as ever. But now it stood as a symbol, a reminder that true strength often comes in unexpected packages, and that the ability to adapt and endure is the greatest beauty of all. As the applause in the council chamber died down, Rodriguez looked out at the sea of alien faces and allowed herself a small smile. The galaxy had underestimated humanity and their ugly ships. They wouldn't make that mistake again. The era of humanity's ugly ships had only just begun, and with it, a new chapter in galactic history was about to unfold.